Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We love having you here, and it's our mission to bring you all the latest and greatest tips, skills, and know-how to make you the best that you can be. We know that you have it in you, and we're going to show you how. Now, let's get started.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Life Upgrade podcast show, and this is your host, Fulfillment Obi. Today we're talking about something very, very interesting. We're talking about perception and its effect on our journey to success. It's going to be really, really mind-blowing, and it's going to impact your life positively. After this podcast episode, you have to relook and rethink about some certain decisions, some certain mindset or belief system you've been working with. Let's get started.
Strap yourself in, because we're set up, switched on, and ready to go.
Now, before we get deep into the topic, let me tell you a story. If you've been following this podcast, you know I really, really love to tell stories because it helps us to relate and put to practice what we're learning. I'm going to be addressing the elephant in the room. Well, this story is about an elephant. And it's a classical story, so you must have heard it before, but it's going to be really, really vital to our topic. 4 blind men were presented with an elephant to explain what it looks like. So the first blind man touched the leg. He was like, it's like a tree. The second blind man touched the tail. It was like, it's like a snake. The third blind man touched the trunk, and it was like, it's like a pipe. And the fourth blind man touched the body, and it was like, it's like a wall. Now, each of these blind men, they felt the elephant, and they explained what it looks like to them. That's their perception. Were they right? Yes. Were they wrong? Yes. They were right and they were wrong because they were limited in the area of their perception. This will lead me to explain what perception is in plain terms as it relates to what we're talking about today. Perception is the activity of conception based on our interpretation of reality, experiences, or beliefs. It is our view of what the world looks like, or what the world is, or what the world is not. It's the way we look at the world, ourselves, and other people. It's the way we interpret our experiences, either good or bad. That's just all perception is. When we talk about physical perception or sensual perception, we are looking at our eyes, our ears, and the 5 sense organ, how it helps us to relate with our surrounding and the environment, how it responds to stimuli. But when we look at mental perception, it's very important and more deeper than sensual perception because it determines where we end up in life. If we're going to be successful or not, it depends on our perception. If we're ever going to make it in life or not, it depends on our perception. If we're ever going to go far, inspire a lot of people, and attain greatness, it depends on our perception. Now it looks like everything we do in life is dependent on our perception. Actually, it's true, and it's true to some extent. So we have to talk about perception and reality, the thin line between perception and reality. We have to go back to the story we talked about earlier about the blind man and the elephant. The blind man interpreted the elephant based on their perception. So the context of what an elephant looked like was limited by their perception. Since they had no eyes, they were limited to think like the elephant was like a wall, a snake, or a tree. But in reality, that's not what an elephant looks like. An elephant looks like nothing compared to what they just said. So if their eyes were to be open, they will realize that they have been limited by their perception. Actually, it's the truth today. A lot of people view the world in a way that is so harmful to their life, and it's because their perception about life is already flawed. The way they look at things, events, and experiences and interpret those experiences have harmed them, have limited their growth, have allowed them to live a mediocre kind of life. So if you think life is in a certain way or moving toward a certain direction, and in reality is not like that, then you put yourself in the limited position. You put yourself in a position where you will not be able to function or explore or bring out the potential that is deposited inside of you. So your perception about life is very important because it will affect even your decision making, your belief system, and everything you do. People run into a lot of trouble when what they perceive in their heart, in their mind, doesn't match what they are saying in reality. For example, I'm going to college, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to graduate, and I'm going to get a job. But when it turns out the other way, they graduate from college and to secure a job is not possible, or it's looking impossible, it crashes their mental system. It puts them in a state of trauma and depression, and it limits their growth. Now, every other opportunity in life is being blocked out or kept away or not recognize because their perception is limited. The perception is limited. The perception about their life and how far they can go or what they can achieve in life has been limited based on their perception. And perception goes deeper than belief because it's what drives a belief system. And one of the bad side about negative perception or a limited perception about life is that it reinforces a bias and negative beliefs about how the world works or how it operates. Now, let's go back to the story again. If the blind men were to meet together to discuss what an elephant looked like, it's going to cause a lot of conflict. Why? Because their experiences are both different. They are both right and they are wrong. So for them to truly experience or interpret what an elephant look like, one of them need to have maybe an eye surgery or to have their sight corrected. That is the only way they will be able to interpret the reality of what the elephants look like. Unfortunately, a lot of people refute the truth today because they have allowed their negative perception or their limited perception or build their belief system. They have based their limited perception on the standpoint of the truth, and they are not willing to move past that point to perceive from a higher dimension or from a higher perspective. The three ways a perception are formed, and number one is the strongest of them all. Number one is our early childhood. Number two is our experiences. And number three is influence. Those three things, they form the core of our perception. Now let's talk about the early childhood. When you're growing up, your parents, they cared for you, they loved you, they provided everything you needed. So your view about life might be, well, it's possible to get everything done in life, or your view may be, I will always need people to support me. Someone who in his early childhood was neglected, rejected, and was never cared for by the parents, we have a different perception about life. So most of us, the perception we hold towards life was from our early childhood. We're influenced by the situations surrounding our early childhood. The next is our experiences. As we grow older, we become aware of reality, of our environment and the things that are going on around us. We are aware of how people treat us and how we treat other people and how we receive validation and how we settle ourselves in social situation or fit into the society. The next is our experiences. Experiences are so powerful. Why? Because they help us put together information of how the world works or what the world looks like. It helps us to interpret events and circumstances, be it good or bad. So someone who have had a life of struggle and pain and misfortune cannot understand what it means to be wealthy, what it means to be rich, and what it means to be free. Someone who have lived his whole life like a slave cannot imagine freedom. So their perception about life is already flawed from their experiences, and their experiences continue to reaffirm their negative bias about life, and this keeps them in a limited position. If we are to dwell on our experiences alone, we are sure that our perception about life might be very limited. Most people do some things not because they really want to do them, but because they are influenced to do them. If you have a grandfather who is an engineer and he always talk about how good it is to be an engineer, you might want to be influenced to follow that career path. And if care is not taken, you might be influenced to follow that career path. Now, that might not be what you dreamed about, but you have been influenced to follow that career path. That's the same with influence. Influence is compelling people to do something without the use of force, making them believe it's their own decision. Influence is very powerful, and that's why most people choose to do drugs and are stuck in alcoholism and every kind of addiction, because they followed some persons and those persons influence their decision, and they find themselves doing some certain things they don't want to do. So to defend what they do, they have to alter their perception about life, and that's where the problem comes in. Influence is powerful. It can be good or bad. You can be influenced for good, and you can also be influenced for bad, but it alters our perception about life. It makes us to look inside and throw away some certain beliefs that we once held on to, and now embrace a new belief, and that alters our perception about life and makes us to continue to act in a certain way, make certain decisions, or follow certain paths in life. One thing about perception is that it is being interpreted to be true. So everyone who holds a perception about life at some certain degree thinks that he's walking in truth. Now this will lead me to talk about absolute and relative truth. Is there anything like absolute truth or relative truth? Yeah, I think this is something that we really have to talk about so we can really balance things up and know how we can use our perception to fuel our growth and move towards greatness. Years ago, I was listening to someone talk and he said, there's nothing like absolute truth. That truth is relative. Whatever is true to you is true to you, even if it's not true to me. Well, that kind of thinking is flawed and it's dangerous. While it is difficult to have absolute truth, they are indeed absolute truth. And if they are absolute truth, then we have to move towards the direction to attain absolute truth. If you think that truth is relative, that whatever you think is right, and whatever you think is wrong, then you will be limited in life. And that alone is a limited perception about life. Now, let's really go deep and talk about truth. Now, for example, the laws of the universe, the laws of nature, everything falls into absolution of truth. If those things were not true and they change based on how they are being perceived, it would be impossible for us to live on earth or survive on earth. So they are absolute truths, and it depends on us now to find out those things that are true so we can keep moving toward the direction. Now, one of these absolute truths is we never stop growing. If you believe that you never stop growing, you will continue to find ways to improve yourself, to grow, to read, to listen to podcasts, to study the scriptures, to meditate, to pray, and to keep on doing those things you do so that you will grow. The very moment you believe that you've grown, you have arrived, and you know everything you need to know, then you have already limited yourself, because that alone is a false perception. Why that is an absolute truth, it is difficult for most people to believe that they can never stop growing. So many people have hit the plateau of their growth and reached the end of their destination because they refuse to perceive life at that level. Those people who are truly great, they never stop improving themselves, they never stop growing, and they never stop betting new ideas. On the other hand, if you think that whatever you believe in life is your own, is what works for you, and you refuse to accept that you might be limited based on circumstances, experiences, or matters arising from your early childhood, then you put yourself in danger. Those kind of people look at the problem they face in life, the challenges, as the limitation to their growth. Okay, let's make this more practical. Person A and person B have two different perceptions. Person A believes that every challenge in life is an opportunity to step into greater height. Person B believes that every bad situation in life has come to destroy and to put him down. So, and life is full of challenges. That's absolutely true. We can't do without challenges. When person B continually faces challenges, he tends to diminish on the inside more and more. But person A keep growing, keep improving, and keep being a better person than he was yesterday based on his perception about life. What is the role of imagination when it comes to the creative process of perception? It plays a very, very crucial role. Imaginations are the very drivers of perception. If we lack the ability to imagine, then we also lack the ability to perceive. Albert Einstein was able to do the great things he does because he believes in his imagination, and he was able to bring his imaginations to reality. The reason why our imaginations are so powerful, because they gives us the power to process our thoughts and put them into mental picture. They help us to envision the future and take necessary action to build on that foundation. The reason why people who have high imagination are very creative is because they are able to see, perceive what most people can't. So some great artists are able to bring to life what people think is impossible. Why? Because their imagination have fused with that perception. When there's no limit to what you can imagine and what you can perceive, there's no limit to what you can do in life. So some of us have totally shut down our imagination process. We say, oh, this cannot be done in reality. Well, let's look at the movie industry. Everything you watch, the blockbuster movies, the animation, and all the tech stuff that's going on came about from someone's imagination. To make those movies a reality took a lot of time, imagination, and a lot of work. So if you are able to fuse your imagination with your perception, and there's no limit to what you can see, to dream, or to envision, you become one of the most powerful beings on earth. As the Bible will always says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Our imaginations are very powerful. They were not given to us by mistake. They were built into us so we can drive our creative processes and uplift our perception about life. As long as we can imagine at a higher level, from a higher perspective, it will be possible for us to perceive life from that perspective, and that will drive us to take actions that will change the world. Now let's talk about how you can use your perception to drive yourself towards success. How you can cut away the limitations of perception and the disadvantages of perception. Number one, you must challenge your limitation. Challenge your limitation and seek for the absolute truth. If you are in a very limited position in life, you are in debt, or your life is very messy and bad, then you have to challenge your limitation by seeking for the truth. And one of the ways you can do that is to read, study as much as you can. Information changes perception. The more information you are exposed to, the more you'll be able to change your perception about life very, very fast. So ignorance is one of the building blocks of false or limited perception. When you have access to higher information that can change your life, then it becomes very difficult for you to continue to perceive at the level we should perceive. When you have access to more information and your knowledge base expands, you'll be able to perceive life from a higher perspective, and that will drive you to challenge your limitation and bring about change. Number two, your mental strength depends on your perception. How do you interpret bad life situation or bad circumstances? What do you do when your heart's broken, when you're disappointed, when you are let down? What do you do when you're abused or insulted? How do you think about those situations, those circumstances? How you interpret them matters a lot. If you look at it from a negative light, they can limit your perception and put you in a place, in a position where you'll be stuck in life. But if you use all your bad experiences as a building block to step into your future, it will elevate your perception about life, and you begin to see good possibilities in every bad experience, every bad life situation. You'll be able to turn those experiences, those damaging experiences, those traumatic experiences, to good experiences. You use them as a stepping stone to greatness. And lastly, push yourself to grow. Challenge your limitation and do the impossible. You must do this on a daily. Try as much as possible to become a better version of yourself daily. Do those things you think are impossible, those things you think that can never be done, those ideas you have that you think are not possible to bring into reality. Try to put them to action. Try to do something that will challenge your life. And when you challenge yourself and challenge your limitation, and you push yourself to the edge and push yourself to grow, then your perception about life will be totally altered for good. You begin to see impossibilities as possibilities, and nothing in life will be able to hold you back. Nothing will be able to stop you, and nothing will be able to drain your energy. Now, here's a couple of quick advice I will have to give to everyone who have listened to this episode. Perception is powerful, and it's something that is very difficult to change or alter. It takes a lot of time and practice to change your perception about a particular situation or about life or how you view the world. But there's an easier way to get this done, and that is about your faith, what you believe in. If you are not a Christian or you're not a believer, then it will be difficult for you to put some certain things into perspective. When you are in Christ and when you have given your life to God, it is far more easier to upgrade your perception about life, because everything comes from the Spirit. Believe it or not, there's a spiritual inclination to perception, and a lot of people will not tell you this, but it's actually the truth. And when you cling to Christ or you are in the faith, it becomes easier for you to build on that. There are certain things about your life that physically you cannot know, but if you come to Christ and you come and dwell in Christ, it will give you the ability to have those valuable insights about your life, and you know those areas where it is necessary for you to change. Under quickest advice, spend time in prayer, study the scripture. If you truly want to grow in spirituality and in faith, then I think you should check our YouTube channel. the Living Flames of Fire on YouTube. Everything you need to grow as a believer will be on that channel. You will learn, you grow, you strengthen your faith, and you will not be limited by false perception, and you will walk by the truth. I mean the absolute truth, because Christ is the absolute truth. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I want to believe that it has totally changed your life. If you got any questions, please send it through the voice message link, or if you're on Spotify, you can just go to the question tab and drop your questions. If you really enjoyed this episode and you know it's really impactful, just do us the favor of sharing to as many as you can. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, stay empowered and stay blessed.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week again for a fresh round.